Now it's P's and Q's. Personalities and questions as former Miss Massachusetts Maria Lynn Chaffee talks with people you'd like to know better. P's and Q's is presented each week at this time by Waltham Savings Bank, with offices in Waltham, Weston, and Sudbury. And now, here's Maria.
My guest this week is Dr. David Neiman, scholar, theologian, and author of a recently published translation and commentary of the Book of Job. Dr. Neiman is, by all means, a remarkable man. He was first introduced to the Book of Job as a student, while undertaking an amazing 36 class hours a week. As exhausting as his schedule was, his education has carried him far. Dr. Neiman is the first Jewish scholar ever to be appointed to a permanent position in the faculty of a Catholic university. Besides holding his teaching position at Boston College, Dr. Neiman taught at New York University, at the New School for Social Research in New York, at Brandeis University, and recently was the first man to teach Jewish theology at the 420-year-old Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. Dr. Neiman's The Book of Job offers a colorful and unusually contemporary translation and commentary that can be appreciated by a wide range of readers. The language is simple, yet eloquent, and the fundamental meaning of the story of Job is clarified in such a way that one achieves a fresh understanding of what is one of the Old Testament's most perplexing works.
Dr. Neiman, to begin at the beginning, the Book of Job is one book of the Bible in the Old Testament that questions God rather than simply accepting his goodness. How would you say the Book of Job differs from the other writings of the Old Testament?
Most of the books in the Old Testament present a point of view, which is that the world is ruled by moral law, and God is the judge of all men, that men's actions are judged and they are rewarded or punished according to their evil or good deeds. The Book of Job is one of two books in the Bible that questions this religious philosophical idea. Ecclesiastes is the other. Mm-hmm. But the Book of Job questions it very sharply and presents, one might say, almost every contradictory opinion on the question of man and his place in the universe.
Yes, and in the book that you wrote recently, you chose 4 very unusual quotes, I think, from very diverse sources at the beginning. One was from one of the Psalms, one was from St. Paul, one from Ulysses,
Buddha.
James Joyce, and Buddha. And all of these quotes convey the message that existence is only suffering and eventually leads to death. Now, if one accepts this attitude, what solace does one find in the Book of Job, do you think?
Well, the problem of human suffering is universal. As you know, of the 3.5 billion people on the face of the earth today, probably no more than 1 billion and probably less than 1 billion live under what we would call reasonable conditions of comfort. In other words, 5/7 of the world's population live on the very edge of annihilation and starvation. Suffering is universal, and even people who are economically well off are suffering too. They may have their emotional problems, which bring them no less pain and suffering than, let us say, a physical affliction. So the problem of suffering is universal, and people have always recognized it. Now the dilemma of man remains: what is the meaning of life if one seems to live a life which leads to death? And all religion basically tries to answer that problem. Does man have salvation? Does man have the possibility of reward? Is fulfillment possible? Is man possessed of an eternal soul? Many believe that. Many are uncertain. Many question it. Some deny it. And yet, most people believe that there is an eternity of some kind. What man's relationship to it is, we can't be certain. The Book of Job tries to answer the question by questioning it, that is, by examining it fully. And one of the conclusions reached is that even though life seems to be pointless, we live and die, there is still something to be gained out of it by trying to live harmoniously, trying to create a sense of well-being.
And to live as men of compassion.
And to live with compassion and concern.
Yes, the chapter on the speech of God is very interesting. And of course, God's message to Job in that chapter is that he shouldn't concern himself with the divine, but rather to concern himself with the human and to take care of his own world. Yet, in your commentary through that chapter, you seem to suggest a skepticism that man is taking care of his world, almost to the point that where God says man really isn't essential to existence, but he's almost detrimental to existence. What are your feelings about that?
Well, God says, or the author of Job in the speech of God says that man shouldn't be concerned with the creation of the universe and externals, but should, as you correctly quote, concern himself with man's problem and the ordering of society. But as we look upon the world, doesn't it appear as if man is a big disappointment? There are so many things that go beyond the point of anger. They're almost too shocking for words. I mean, man does things to this world which go beyond the bounds of immorality.
And not only to this world and polluting his world and so forth, but also to himself. Man seems to...
Man is not only destructive of his environment and destructive and inconsiderate of other creatures, but man is extremely harmful to himself. He's self-destructive.
He's one of the unique species where other species preserve themselves and have the natural instinct to preserve themselves. Man seems to hurt himself and, as you say, be self-destructive.
Yes. And this is the thing that is so frightening. Why should man be self-destructive? And is there any way of overcoming this desire or instinct to self-annihilation? And we have to overcome it.
Well, there's another interesting suggestion in that chapter, and that's that men who have been successful and are heroes throughout history are men who seem to be descendants of Cain. We are all descendants of Cain who killed his brother, but men who have developed this instinct to dominate other men rather than to be compassionate towards other men have been our heroes throughout the course of history. Now, what argument do you think there is in the book of Job to convince men to be compassionate rather than to be dominant?
It's the problem of resolving this conflict. It is the inherent tragedy of history that the creative people also happen to be dominant people, and that in many the will to dominate is a destructive will. That is, they wish to dominate, but in order to do so, they have to crush others in their way.
And very often they are followed and revered for being...
Yes, the hero is revered, the leader is revered. In fact, one has to be very simple-minded not to realize that it doesn't take much imagination to arouse a people to follow by simply saying, we have a terrible enemy whom we have to destroy, and let's all get ready to fight. And when a leader says, let's get ready to fight, somehow there is an instinctive raising of the blood pressure and an exhilaration in people. It seems that people have an instinctive desire to rally to a cause, especially if it involves conflict. And this is a tragedy, because we seem to be creatures who are stimulated by conflict.
Join us next week when Dr. Neiman will continue his discussion of the book of Job and will comment on its relevance to the future of man in the 20th century. The book is now available at the Boston College Bookstore, and as of next week will be on sale in bookstores throughout the country. This is Maria Lynn Chaffee for WCRB. Now this word from Waltham Savings Bank.
Most people know that it's very important to have life insurance. What many people don't realize is that there's a big difference in the cost of life insurance. So it's really worthwhile to do some serious shopping while you're in the market for life insurance. In fact, the 1972 Pennsylvania Insurance Department's Shopper's Guide to Life Insurance states, and we quote, "It pays to shop for life insurance. Costs may vary over 170%, end of quote. So shop and compare, and you can save. Look into Savings Bank Life Insurance at Waltham Savings Bank. It's one of the best life insurance buys in all America." Join us next week at this same time for more P's and Q's, personalities, and questions with the former Miss Massachusetts, Maria Lynn Chaffee, presented by Waltham Savings Bank, with offices in Waltham, Weston, and Sudbury.